Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Today I'm going to be walking you through a Guyanese pastry known as Chinee Cake or black-eyed cake. It's stuffed with a sweet black-eyed peas filling. I can recall moments in my childhood when I would go to work with my aunt back home in Guyana, and her coworkers would go to the street vendors and buy me delicious pastries like this Chinee cake. I'm so happy I can share this recipe with you today that I learned from both my mom and my aunts. Now, in a pot of boiling water, I'm going to add 1 tin of black-eyed peas. I'm going to allow it to cook for about 7 minutes. At this point, I'm going to strain it and then use my potato masher to mash it. You want to make sure that you completely mash all of your peas until you don't see any whole pieces anymore, because you definitely don't want a whole piece of it inside of your pastry. Now once that's done, I'm going to put it back on a low heat in my pot and add 1.5 cups of brown sugar. Now to some this might be too much, so feel free to add less if you wish, but for me and my family this was the perfect amount. You're going to continue mixing until it reaches a jam-like consistency, so for about 13 minutes should do the trick. Now, there were still some whole pieces of peas in my pot, so I went in with a hand blender. Don't be afraid to do the same if you see some whole pieces of peas still left there. Now that it's reached a jam-like consistency, I'm going to place it aside to cool and move on to working on my pastry dough. I actually allowed it to cool overnight in the fridge because once the jam has cooled down, it's a lot easier to work with compared to when it's too hot and sticky. You don't want to fill your pastry with something that's warm because then your pastry is going to burst, it's not going to close, it's going to be really difficult to manage. So you're going to wait till your filling has cooled down before you fill your pastry. For my pastry dough, I've added 3 cups of flour, a half a cup of margarine, and a half a cup of shortening to a medium-sized bowl. Now I'm going to use my fingertips to mix my ingredients together until my dough is crumbly like this. You can also use the palms of your hand to form that crumble as well. Now once you've achieved your crumbly dough, you're going to gradually add in about a half a cup of ice cold water. And once again, you're going to use your fingertips to form that crumbly dough into a solid piece of dough. Now what I'm doing here is removing the pieces of dough that I formed into the solid texture that I want, and I'm continuing to go back to the crumbly pieces and do the same. I only did this because it was easier for me to manage my dough. Now once I'm done doing that, I'm going to re-add all of my solid pieces of dough back into my bowl and knead it also using my fingertips. I'm going to knead it until it's somewhat smooth and form it into a long log shape, and then wrap it in saran wrap and put it in the fridge for an hour. At this point it's been an hour and I'm ready to start making my Chinee cake. So I've sectioned my dough into 3 pieces so it's easier to work with. I'm going to round one of my pieces of dough and then begin rolling it until it's reached this thickness. Then I'm going to use the mouth of a glass to cut out round shapes and remove the excess dough. Next, I'm going to roll out one of my rounded shapes in both a vertical and horizontal direction. You want to be on the semi-thin side like it is here. Once that's done, you're going to add some of your black eye filling into the center of your dough. Just a reminder that my filling was cooling overnight in the fridge. Then I'm going to fold my dough inwards like you can see here, making sure I close all the gaps and pinch it at the top so it closes. You can use the palms of your hands to smooth it out and then flatten it. Now let's do it again so you get the hang of it. So number 1, you're going to roll out one of the 3 pieces of dough that you parted until it reaches this thickness. Number 2, you're going to use the mouth of a glass to make rounded shapes in your dough and then remove the excess dough. Number 3, you're going to roll one of those rounded shapes out in both a vertical and horizontal direction until it's semi-thin. You definitely do not want it to be too thick. Number 4, you're going to add some of your black eye filling into the center of your dough. Number 5, you're going to fold the outer pieces of your dough inwards, making sure that you close all of the gaps and clamp it shut at the top. You can use the palm of your hands to round it as well as smooth it out and then flatten it. You're going to repeat this pattern until you are all done. Now the next step is to glaze over top of your pastry with some egg wash. I've cracked and whisked one egg and added a little drop of yellow food coloring to it. Once this is done, I'm going to use some red food coloring to add the red dot on top of my Chinee cake. It would not be a Chinee cake without this red dot. It is something this pastry is known for. Once that's done, I'm going to pop it in the oven for about 30 minutes at 350 degrees. Now, everyone's stove is different. I actually had to end up baking my pastry for about an hour, and that's only because my oven has been giving me some trouble lately. So with this being said, I definitely recommend about 30 minutes for you. As a suggestion, you can also check up on your pastry and see how it is coming along by cutting one of them in half. At this point, my pastries are now all finished and ready to be enjoyed. This recipe is very much doable, and I hope you give it a try at home. If you do, then remember to tag me on Instagram so I can repost all of your yummy recreations. If you like this video, then give it a thumbs up, share, subscribe, hit that post notification bell, and leave all of your comments down below. I look forward to reading them. Also, feel free to check out some of my other pastry recipes like my Guyanese style cheese rolls and coconut buns that I've linked down below. Thanks for watching.